Hi students, this is the video for Unit 5, and I'm going to keep it real short because it's Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday morning right now, and the construction on my addition is going on. And already Jennifer Goodman has posted wonderful comments about the two questions that were up for response today on the discussion board. I replied to them, and they are like my vision of what I hoped these discussion board postings would be all about. So they're great. A couple of assignment topics though. Number one, about assessment papers, unity papers. The question is, how unified was Vermont at the end of a period you're studying compared to the beginning? I haven't received any yet. Jennifer Goodman has said she's going to send me one soon. I think the way you want to do it is, even if you get ahead, obviously we're past the 1840s at this point, but please write your first one from the 1770s to the 1840s, and then the next one will be from the Civil War up to about 1920 or so. That's due at the end of week 4, and this is week 3, and then you'll write one from the 1930s, 40s up to the present. Again, on the assessment papers, I'm not trying to micromanage your assessment papers. I want you to tell me Vermont's history like a story. And so please, you know, within the confines of trying to make sure you have a clear thesis statement, was Vermont more or less unified at the end of the period than at the beginning? Besides that, be creative, you know, just use sources and please cite them. The syllabus does say two other things. One is that on assessment papers you can write 4 and I'll drop your lowest grade, because I want to make sure you have enough material to feel like you're being graded fairly in this course. The other one is that, and I believe Jennifer Vanslet-Rash asked about doing a genealogy project. One of the great things about the internet is, for historians, is Ancestry.com. It's a wonderful thing, and if you really do want to do a genealogy project of some kind, it doesn't have to be on your family. I can actually assign you people I want to research myself. Write me, let's talk about that. I really think that, you know, you get a 14-day free trial on Ancestry.com, and I really think you should consider that, because it's really a lot of fun, you know, working with primary documents, finding out things you didn't know. It's cool. Town meeting papers in regular in-person courses. Really the point of town meeting papers, number one, is to get students to have a better ability to write really nasty, vitriolic, angry letters to the editor of newspapers or to friends, you know. I'm so mad. The downhillers are a bunch of snobs ruining Vermont. Real Vermonters like me, blah, blah, blah. It's fun. Another thing, though, that town meeting papers are for is to make sure students read the documents before they come to class, which obviously is irrelevant in this context. And the responses to the last town meeting, number 2, were so good they sounded like town meeting papers. I think maybe the town meeting papers are superfluous, you know, because you're doing what town meeting papers are when you post a discussion board. But I'm going to write about that online, just so you know I'm thinking about that. Okay, Unit 5 is pretty simple. Here's the thing particularly, is that we're now entering into the Gilded Age and Progressive Era, which is my area of expertise as far as Vermont goes, for what it's worth. And so I'm going to introduce you in Unit 6 to a book that I'm writing right now, and we're going to be talking about that in Units 6 and 7 and 8 and 9. But this Unit 5 is meant to just situate you in what the Gilded Age was like. And so there's 3 sections to this unit. Number 1 is the real basic question, around which the historiography of the Gilded Age and Vermont and rural New England has revolved, which is rural Vermont in decline in the Gilded Age, or is it stable? Is it going downhill? Is it in a state of crisis, or is it doing fine? And of course it depends upon who you would ask at the time. Mostly uphill folk, rural folk, thought it was fine. They saw problems, but they didn't want dramatic, huge modernization as a remedy to it, because that endangered the very ways of life that they valued. Whereas downhill folk, of course, thought that rural Vermont was in steep decline and needed immediate solutions. And therefore it's a very contentious era. The second section of the unit is a example of how contentious the era is. I could have lots of examples: elementary and secondary school reform, banking, railroads, on and on and on, healthcare, where there's a lot of issues. I figured that since you're UVM students, you might enjoy the UVM story. It's a juicy one. There was a Board of Agriculture, a state agency, that a guy named Zora Jameson, who was from Irisburg, became the most active member of. He was also he was sort of a spokesman for the Uphillers. And he became very upset about the fact that UVM's administration was just taking the money for the agricultural college and just spending it on themselves. The agricultural college at UVM was a joke in the 1870s. And it became a real lightning rod. Like, very much downhillers thought it was fine and uphillers thought it was a disgrace. And so finally Jameson, in 1876, from his position as head of the Board of Agriculture, came out in favor of separating the State Agricultural College from UVM and relocating it, always to Randolph. They always want to put it in Randolph because it's centrally located. When Jameson came out in favor of separation of the Ag College from UVM, the governor, who was a UVM grad, fired him from the board, and then Jameson, in response, got elected to the state legislature and launched an investigation of UVM's treatment of the Ag College, and everyone was mad at each other, and it was hilarious. So there's kind of like, your sort of vision. But, think about the schooling issue, which is downhillers and uphillers are both concerned about how do you keep boys on the farm? How do you make farm life attractive? And downhillers said the way you make farm life attractive is to make it mirror and mimic city life, which is what is so attractive to people. What you do want to do is modernize rural life. And what uphillers said was, if you modernize rural life, you threaten the very things that make rural life valuable. Community, interdependence, independence, self-sufficiency, all these things. And so the Gilded Age is contentious like that. So contentious that when a old guy, he'd been governor, he was a really neat fellow named Highland Hall, wanted to see a battle monument built for the Battle of Bennington, which is a Revolutionary War battle. The other people he was very old when they made the design decisions. The people on the association, younger men, thought it should be elaborate and fancy and carved and have all sorts of engravings on it and tell the story of the battle. Highland Hall, who had originated the idea of the monument, insisted that it be blank. And then he died at the age of 95, and they felt so bad that they gave him the blank monument he wanted after he died. Well, it's a great topic. Jennifer Goodman has written a beautiful piece on the discussion board, which I hope that the other ones of you will read. It's a great question, and I ask students this when I do this battle monument story, is what does it mean that the monument had to be blank? People on the Monument Association said people don't know what it's for. Highland Hall said they'll know what it's for. It's better that way for it to be blank, because then uphillers can look at it and think, people can put whatever meaning onto it that they want. And is that a testament to how weak the Imagined Community was, or how powerful it was at the era? Another way to think about that is, was Vermont's story the story of two different paths to the same goal, or different goals? And you could go around in circles forever on that question, but I'll leave it for that, and that's Unit 5.